Welcome to our classical music improvisation channel with tutorials, historical descriptions, challenges, and more about classical music improvisation. And I'm Robert. This video is an interview with violinist, musicologist, and improviser Javier Lupiáñez. Javier has a beguiling way of speaking and will take us on a journey through manuscripts from the past which show us how Vivaldi improvised, but also Tartini, Nardini, Veracini, and Farinelli, and there is more yet. Javier recently published a fantastic catalogue of sources, a grand overview of going towards 2,000 different sources from the 13th century till secondary sources from our century, which you can categorize by instrument, period, author, plays, whatever you want. So there are also cadenzas and preludes and more to be found here. So, of course, after watching this video, do go there and explore. Finally, you might want to watch some other interviews as well. It's a popular thing to say nowadays that classical musicians don't improvise, but actually that's more and more not true anymore. So have a look here, and other interviews will follow soon as well. What is your earliest memory of improvising?
When I was in my town in Melilla, and that is in Spain, and I was studying violin, and then I started with some friend an Irish music group, and that was a lot of fun. We didn't know very well what were we doing actually, but I remember perfectly that I need to have everything written. We look for music, and then and I remember the flute player in this ensemble. He really just listened something, and he didn't know anything about music, but he was a great musician. And he didn't know anything about the song, but he just listened once, and he came, "Hey, Lupi, let's play that." I go like, slowly, okay. What? Ti ta 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 ti 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 ti, and yeah, that was the first step. And then he started to just improvise, and I tried also without knowing very, very well. And I remember that during the rehearsal in this group, we were all very serious, like, okay, no, you are not together, the guitar, blah blah, and then we came to the concert. We had a lot of fun. When I do music, I love to research and to be curious about things. Something that appeals me a lot about Baroque music. At the beginning, it was just Baroque music. After I discovered that it's in all the music, is something of the freedom that I was lacking when I was studying modern violin. At this point, I discovered okay, now here you need to be out of the thing that are written. And then I start to deep a little bit more, and I discover a huge field, a huge world, completely unknown to me, but super exciting, that I love to research. And I started to put things together, and that's why I started to do improvisation. And I started to study musicology, and I was very interested on improvisation and to put together the research with the practical thing. And I fell in love with this idea, and here I am now speaking with you.
You also did research into Vivaldi and ornamentation and improvisation there.
Yeah.
Can you tell us more about that?
15 years ago, something like this, I started to deep into some catalogs, and I discovered the Dresden catalog. That by this time they were starting to digitalize a lot of things, especially the things that belongs to Dresden, Kurt, and Pisendel catalog, the Schwanzweih, and they were scores that belonged to Pisendel and the Kurt. And I was just scrolling, oh, very nice concerto, I want to play this from the original source. And I discovered that some of the scores, they had some little dots, annotations. What is that, annotation? And I discovered that was annotation by Pisendel himself. Just some markings for ornamenting. And you can see the melody, and just some notes going to here and that. That meant that Pisendel was, this idea, like nowadays I do myself. I am here and then I improvise, and I do some ornament. This turn was nice, I like it. I will go to this note to use this. So he was doing same. It was super interesting, and then I started to dip a little bit more, and I discovered that not only dots, but full cadenzas or full versions of ornamented passages. Of course, I wanted to research that, and then I decided, okay, after doing musicology, I would like to do a serious research on that, and opportunity can be to do a PhD. So I was in contact by this time with Michael Talbot, who is an amazing guy. It's amazing. And he said, okay, Javier, now I'm very old. I'm retired. I just like to fish and to go fishing and to write my own stuff. I will help you. So he recommended me Fabrizio Ameto, who is a great musicologist, but he's working in Guanajuato. So I started the PhD there. Everything was online, and at the beginning I wanted to do everything, like all the manuscript with those annotations that are super interesting, but it was too much. There is almost 200 manuscripts with annotation for ornamentation in Dresden, and it was a lot. But then I realized that some of those manuscripts belongs to Vivaldi. I mean, the majority of manuscripts with annotations are manuscripts with Vivaldi music, and not only that, a lot of annotations were written in orthographs of Vivaldi music. So, and a lot of annotations were written when Pisendel was studying with Vivaldi. So, a question started to form in my head. Those annotations are by Vivaldi, of part of the teachings of how you teach, how they learned ornamentation. So my PhD tried to answer this question. Those ornaments into Vivaldi belongs to a Vivaldian school, and after, when we found those annotations in German manuscript and later, are they different? And the answer came after a lot of research and doing a lot of investigation, because I needed to set up a grammar of the Vivaldi way of ornamenting, that it wasn't done. So I analyzed all those sources by Vivaldi, also some manuscript with like the Libro d'Anna Maria, that have this version, impressive and beautiful version of this concerto by Vivaldi with all the ornaments. And actually, when you go to Pisendel manuscript, it's very interesting, because the one that he wrote, the one that I created in Venice, shows a completely different way of ornamenting, very close to the one that we can find in the Libro d'Anna Maria, or the one that in the Grosso Mogul, this kind of ornamenting with weird steps. And after, when he goes to Germany and he starts to add ornaments also into the Vivaldi manuscript, but ornament that belongs to another later dates, like 1720, 1725, the way of ornamenting started to be more German, more according to Quantz, for instance. I'm very different from the very beginning, when he was young and crazy and much more influenced by Vivaldi. So I got also very interested in this different way of ornamenting, and this Vivaldian way of ornamenting, really different from the German way of ornamenting. Actually, Quantz, it's very hard with Vivaldi and Tartini. He said they are wild and they don't know. If you want to ornament or to do the ornament correctly, you need to take the good things and to remove all the bad things. And actually, when you go and you see to the Vivaldian way of ornamenting and Pisendel way of ornamenting, you can see all those bad things that Quantz didn't like at all. And when you take the manuscript of the German and Italian manuscript that are ornamented in a latest stage, you can see how Pisendel write and do those ornaments into this. Actually, when you read the letters from Pisendel to Telemann, they spoke a lot about the creation of the new style, and it's copy paste from Quantz. And Quantz was also a student also of Pisendel, and I think he was, but it's super interesting to see this in a practical way, and in the ornamentation, how the ornaments are super Italian and with a lot of passo di risculus and a lot of chromatism and this, and after he started to be even he changed notes in the compositions to make it more into the German taste.
You were talking about this Libro de Anna Maria.
Yes.
Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, it's very interesting. Anna Maria dal Violino, Anna Maria della Pietà, she was a great violin player and one of the favorite players of Vivaldi. Just to have an image about that, Vivaldi bought a new violin for her that was 3 or 4 times more expensive than his own violin, just for her to play. And there is a book that now is in the Benedetto Marcello library, a very nice book with a lot of concerti by Vivaldi and others dedicated to Anna Maria. It's just the violin part. And when you look at those concerti, you can find that some of the concerti has they have another source. There is another source for this concerto, and there is one concerto, I don't remember now the RV exactly, in C major, and the concerto you can find in another source. But the slow movement of this concerto in the Libro of Anna Maria is a wonderful ornamented version, fully ornamented version, crazy ornamented version. That a lot of researchers, they think that this was part of the teaching of Vivaldi to Anna Maria, and it's an ornamented version by Vivaldi himself. So it's a wonderful version, it's a wonderful source to really check what they were doing at the time of Vivaldi. And it's really, really different from all the methods that you can find, from all the advice that Quantz can give you, and with some really crazy things, harmonically crazy things, with a lot of appoggiaturas, and for instance, there is one part that you can see, I think it's a G natural in the bass part, and the violin is playing a G sharp, like because after it's going to A, and this G sharp will go to A very nicely, but the basso is doing G natural at this point. And when you see this kind of thing, like, you are crazy, and this kind of thing, I think the kind of thing that Quantz was complaining. But when you play, it's like, tension, 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 then you go, and it's like, you did really nicely. And this is a wonderful example to analyze the way of ornamenting by Vivaldi and his language.
So you analyzed these ideas, you found all this wealth of information, and how do you take this information to something that is practical? How do you manage to then apply this in concerts?
I tried to make, in my PhD was very hard, but I tried to be very organizing to put all this information together and taking it was very hard, and I tried to make like a grammar of the Vivaldi way of ornamentation, and taking, for instance, harmonically and also melodically, and organizing everything, like what he does in a cadence, for instance, a type of cadence, like you can find also in the methods. And after that, at the beginning, I wrote by myself and trying to extrapolate and to put the same things into other keys or other pieces that were more or less similar. For instance, I remember for Adagio by Vivaldi, that usually it shares some harmonically or just some context that is very similar to other. So I copy paste and I try to do it. And after doing this a lot of times, I tried to how to say, to learn, but it's much not to have the language and the style, and just to think in my hand how can be. And then I try to do it in concert. And lately I tried really not to write anything, because usually I write a lot of things, and then I just wrote like Pisendel, some dots, and then I tried not to write anything, because each concert is different. And when you have all those things in your memory, it's nice that depending of the rhetorical weapon you want to use, that I think this is the main thing when you do ornamentation, that they need to respond to a rhetorical thing. So I want to express this emotion. So this ornament on this way of ornamentation, and to change the line, will help much better the thing that I'm doing. So each concert is different. More or less, I tried that each piece has the same rhetorical thing, but at the moment of the concert, I think Robert, you will relate perfectly, you feel much different, and suddenly some come to your mind, and you feel, this will be great, and to do it. And at the end, you apply all the things that you have learned, you have practiced, you have repeated, you have copied, you have seen, and this remains in your brain, and somehow you try to create the momentum to do this thing. Sometimes it's super successful, I think, because when I'm playing, I'm like, oh, that was nice. And other time, like, well, will be better. Other time, sorry, audience, sorry. Sorry. Now it's going much better, but it's also a way of experimenting a lot and taking risk. And I think it's worth. At the beginning you can fail, and at the end you can fail also. In the middle you will fail also. But I think the important thing is that this thing, the rhetorical thing, and when you are into the mood to express emotions, and even if you go to a wrong key or you play, the audience also gets into this thing of you are playing at the moment, playing with your emotions at the moment, and try to express something created at the moment. And I think this is quite important. Also, this is very related with the music, how it was done at the period. Because at the period, a piece of work was not finished when the composer just the finish of copying. The piece of the art, the work was finished at the moment of the performance, and the performers were completing the work. So when you really do that into a concert, I think you feel it and the people feel it, and it's risky, but I think it's worth to do that. Yeah.
I think what is also very interesting in all the interesting things you have said is that indeed you, in a way, once the concert comes, I mean, whatever you practiced, but you need to also practice being able to do that in a concert. And sometimes, like you say, sometimes it will just not work.
Yeah.
But if you don't do that part, you can never do it in such a way that it works a bit more the next time.
Yeah.
So this is, I think, a very important part of the procedure where, because in the concert, everything always different. Right?
Yes.
You are also doing some work with Tartini. I also had a look at, of course, this book where you have a lot of ideas of ornamentation, but you found a lot of other interesting sources as well. Could you say something about that?
Tartini for me is also a fascinating character, because he was a very good teacher, and apparently not only as a teacher, like teaching things, but also as a person, and he created really a mark into their students, and he created a lot of pedagogical things and about ornamentation. For him, ornamentation was very important, and now we have this huge collection in Berkeley that we can access very easily, and this is, for me, is like the Pisendel collection. It's great to just a couple of clicks, and you can see the thing that he teaches to the students, and you can find in this Berkeley collection full version of adagios with ornamentation, a lot of cadenzas, And also you can read his text and the letters, and he wrote about how ornamented that is super nice. And also it's great because after studying a lot of Vivaldi and Tartini, and they live really very close in the north of Italy, very close of time, and even like this, it's very different way of ornamenting, and in different schools with rods on this, let's say, North Italian, also nothing very different from the German style that will be after the German style, but very different. And this also is a proof how ornamentation really belongs to the personality of the musicians. And also you have this school, but it was very important to show the personality. And this is why when you read all the letters and they said, okay, you want to know how to ornament, you cannot learn from the teacher. You need to go and to study with the teacher. And that's why also we have all those students of Tartini, like Nardini, and I analyze also Nardini also left a lot of super nice version of ornamented version of the adagios. He was called Il violinista dell'amore. So nice. And then and there is an account of Nardini playing and people crying with the. This is the usual thing in the Baroque. Everybody cries with the adagios. But then you analyze the adagio and the ornamentation of Nardini, and you can see how he was influenced by Tartini a lot. But it's Nardini. You can see that is Nardini. It's another thing. It's like Pisendel. Pisendel was very influenced by Vivaldi at the very beginning of his career. But after, he said, no, I want to create my own stuff. And this is very, very nice. And in Tartini, it's great because you have all those sources by Tartini in the Berkeley. You can access and you can see all the cadenza he created, and you have his students, and you can see all everything they created and how different and similar they were. And this is very nice, yeah.
And just before, we were also talking about another Ini, Veracini.
Veracini.
How does Veracini for you relate to this, to these other Inis?
Veracini, very interesting guy. I think he had a difficult personality, and I arrived to Veracini via Pisendel. It was a lot of connections because Veracini was working in Venice or around Venice at the very beginning of around 1711, 1716, more or less. And in 1717, the king, the prince at this time of Dresden, he visited Venice, and he met Veracini, and Veracini impressed him with his playing, like, and the prince was super impressed, and actually he wanted to contract Veracini into the Dresden court, and he created a special position for him, and he paid him the highest salary in this moment. After it will be Leopold Weiss who will have the highest salary, but at this moment it was Veracini. But even the king in Dresden, he said, no, we have enough people, we don't know Veracini. But the prince was like, no, Papa, I want Veracini, he plays very good. Okay, Pisendel and all the other musicians, they said, we have enough people, we don't want Veracini. Okay, we don't want. But he was there, and it seemed that he was a great improviser. And some years before that, in 1711, Carol VI, I think, he visited Venice. He was around, and a huge concert was done into his honor. And there is a book now, it's in Vienna, it's preserved in this archive, and you can check all the pieces. And it starts with the Enter of the King, and these are nice motet, and it is a concert that it's very nice because you can see Concerto a Otto by Veracini, played by himself, played by Veracini. And this concerto, it's very interesting because you can see that the violin part, it's hard with double stop, because of course Veracini was playing in front of the king, and he wanted to show, I am Veracini, one God, one Veracini, look why, and at some point in the very first movement, you can see that the first violin, the solo violin, the staff is completely empty. There's no music, but it's written a capriccio del violino solo. So it means like the first violin did whatever. But the interesting thing is that the basso part have some notes. Pim, pom, pam, 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 pim, pam, pam. At some point, after, I don't know, 32 bars, something like this, the violin start to have some notes. So this was on purpose left empty, and Veracini was improvising like crazy. The third movement is also features the same, but it's interesting because all the orchestra is playing all the string like pam pam, some accompaniment, but the first violin is saying nothing. And this is quite interesting because not only show us the abilities of Veracini, because Veracini wanted to play at his best, so you can see double stops, chords, so the favorites of Veracini, but also one favorite of Veracini was improvising. And after that, after doing this in front of the king, they offer this very nice book, very nice copied book to the king. That was something that it was kind of common. Actually, Veracini also did the same when the Prince of Dresden visited. He offered a very nice book of sonatas here you have with this nice dedicatory. Also, there is another source by Farinelli that I show you with all the ornaments that he offered to the king, because he said, now you can see what you can. So the book was part of this offering to the king, not only the performance. And in the book, the king can see that the violin part is empty. And the violin part, it says like, here I am improvising and I am super good at that.
You have spoken about a lot of different sources so far, and of course people will have become very curious and maybe want to find some sources for their own instrument. And recently you published an amazing resource for us. Tell us a little bit about
it's a catalog of sources for ornamentation. The catalog has two parts: primary sources and secondary sources. The secondary sources is a little bit weak because it needs more. It will be developed into the time, and we will put more things. But also, I found very interesting because of this researching and playing. I would like to read more an article about how to ornament, or a source, a website, or YouTube channel. So this will be into the second sources catalog, and now we have the primary sources catalog. Thanks to collaborator, we have from 13th century till the middle of the 20th century. But if you look at the 18th century and 19th century, it's huge amount of sources that you have, not only treatises and texts speaking about that, but also ornamented versions, example of cadenzas. Each source is linked with the rhythm, and whenever it's possible, it's linked to the library or the Petrucci library, and so people can go for a source and to download. And the second thing that I thought about, it was to create something practical but also collaborative, because I had a lot of sources, of course, but always I was asking people. For example, this Tartini, Nardini, I have a very good relationship with my former teacher of violin, Enrico Gatti, and he's also a super fan of ornamenting, especially Nardini. Nardini, I love it. Yes. And he sent me a lot of contacts of people, gathering sources of all those ornamented versions of Nardini. He helped me a lot. So collaboration with all the researchers is super important. And now in this world of communities, and I found, that can be easy. A website where everybody can look for things, but also everybody can put his thing and add some source or modify some source. I try to do it very practical. So for me, a practical example can be that I am looking for cadenzas written between 17 and 1720 in France. So you just click France, date between 17 and 1720, which cadenza, instruments, I don't know, saxophone. There is not. Okay, but then you know that there is none of saxophone, but violin, there is something. Or cadenzas for 2 instruments, cadenza for 3. That was very interesting, and we have cadenza even for 5 instruments. I think it's the biggest amount of instrument, but this kind of things, and I hope will be useful for everybody.
To finish off, how do you see, what would be your dream for improvisation, ornamentation in classical music? What do you think, what do you see in the future?
I don't know, but I can see that people is in general ornamenting more and more and taking into the normal language of this music. I think it's a very, very important thing of the language of the music in the past. I will not say Baroque, but I will say in the music in general. In the music in general, improvisation is not an alien thing. It was an alien thing at some point in the classical music in the 20th century, when some composers said, you play the thing that is written and stop doing that, and this piece need to last for 2.5 minutes, and this note is... and then it was also into the conservatoire. And the way the instruments were taught, like you are an orchestra guy, so for that you need to play those notes and follow the conductor and long. But this is really an alien. I think this is just some years in the history of music. When you look into other music nowadays, improvisation is a huge thing. Everybody improvise something more or less, but a little bit singing. You never sing the same way when you are singing a pop song. So there is improvisation there. This in folk music, this improvisation like the normal thing. And when you go into the let's say classical music, and you look into the 19th century, beginning of the 20th century, and of course 18th century and 17th century, you see how important and normal that there was. So just not doing that is like not understanding the way the music was conceived and this way. And for me, the historical approach to the music, it's a lot of related about just knowing how to read a score. And knowing how to read a score doesn't mean that this is a quartet note. No, there is a lot of things there in this score. And this is just knowing how to read it. Because when people in the 18th century take a score and they start to reading, they were reading and they were adding ornaments. They were reading this quartet note completely different if it was a minuet or if it was into a concert. They were reading completely different. It was into a ripieno part or a solo part. And that was there into the knowledge of how to read the score. I can see that nowadays, step by step, this thing of improvisation into the classical world is much better. It's much better. It should be improved, of course, and there is now a lot of people who are doing, like you and Robert, that are doing great things into improvisation, and I think other people, especially not only in the historical inform, but other people in the classical world, playing the violin, saxophone, they will take it into the repertoire and into the way of conceiving the music. Yeah.
Great, thank you so much again for all your talking, all the spit used to to get through all of my questions. Thanks so much, and people will surely all flock towards your wonderful catalog now.
Thanks to you for being here and to invite me and to listen to all this, and thanks to everybody who is listening, and subscribe.